I asked James Clear what he would do differently if he were to start all over again. I saw him at an event in Austin, Texas. James is the author of the incredible book Atomic Habits. Here's what he said. There was a certain ecosystem you came up through. Blogging was big.
Yeah.
And you used thought leadership in a narrow niche. If you were to start over today, do you think the same factors are at play, or is it like, oh, now it's more about video versus writing or whatnot? Could you speak to kind of that question if you were to start over today?
Yep.
What would you go about?
It's a great question. I actually do think about this a lot. Like if I was starting now, how would I start? And I think the answer is for sure it would be different. There are some broad principles that would be the same. Like, you're never going to be on the wrong side if you're trying to deliver the most value possible. The very broad principles like that. Give value before you ask for value. How can you, I do this thing a lot with my work where I'm like, how can this be the best thing that's been created on the topic, basically? I think that for a lot of things in life, good enough is good enough. But there are some things, and for me, I've decided habits is going to be one of those things, where good enough is not good enough, and it has to be elite. And so I think it's worth it to have that standard, that high of a bar. Media, any form of media, blogs, books, music, movies, is a power law game. And so the top 1% of authors sell half the books, and it's probably even more than that. So the top 0.1% of authors sell 40% of the book. It's very skewed. And so Tim Urban and I don't know if any of you follow Tim's work, Wait But Why, but Tim and I have talked about this difference between A+ work and A- work. And in media, it's a huge difference. It's not the difference between a 97 and a 93. It's the difference between like a 93 and a 9,000. And so being the best at it it's worth the extra effort to polish it in that way so that you can become known for that thing. But there's big trade-offs there, and it takes a lot of time to do something at that level. So it's not, you got to be very clear that that's worth it for you. So that stuff is the same as it was 10 years ago. There's a bunch of other platform-related things that are very different. Like when I was coming up, 2012, 2015, blogs were bigger. Social media was still in its infancy in a lot of ways. Like some stuff, TikTok wasn't around yet. Instagram was very new. Twitter had been around, but was still kind of, only a couple years old. It was very different. Facebook was kind of the kingpin at that time. And so blogging and email lists were huge then. I actually thought when I started in 2012 that I was late to email lists, that it had already peaked and I had missed the wave, which is kind of hilarious now because I think it's still like the second inning basically. Is very early, and there's somebody starting the next 1 million person email list right now, and in fact they have never grown faster than they are today. So, but I think the primary thing that's different is blogs are not as important, and the email list is still really important. The blogosphere is not what it used to be. But the web is much more siloed and much more platform centric. So I think you kind of have to choose now. Are you, a podcaster and a TikTok person, rather than this hub and spoke model where you're like, oh, I'll start with a blog and then I'll just syndicate it across Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and everything. And it's just, each of those platforms is enormous and has hundreds of millions of users. And so you have to be really exceptional at that thing to stand out in that area. So it's just hard to be great at 7 things. So I think you probably need to choose more. And I would not do this because I don't want to be on video, and I'm not interested in being known widely. Like I said, what I want is like the Calvin Klein or the Kate Spade business, where you know the name but you don't know the face. So I wouldn't want to be a YouTuber, but I think if you were starting today, that's probably, it's like YouTube, podcast, and when you say podcast, you mostly mean YouTube. So yeah, it's probably more platform centric and it's more social media driven. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.